All right, so here's the next part of multiplying our radicals. And so we do have one more type of example, which would be if I have a binomial squared. So just to review, I'm still going to use FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. I still have this same shortcut that says if the square root of something times the same thing, it's going to be that thing. For instance, the square root of 4 times the square root of 4 is 4. The radicals cancel out. And so let's look at this example. The square root of 5 plus 2 square root 7 all squared. Now, what students want to do? They see this and they remember that property back from 15.3 that said that you can distribute squares over multiplication and division. And so the property they remember is something like AB squared. We said that that was A squared, B squared. And then we moved on to the rest of our exponent rules. That is true. What is not true is that you cannot distribute the squared over addition. If you do that, you will get the wrong answer every time. You'll be missing a whole outer and inner term. What we have to do, if you have a binomial squared, we have to rewrite it as the binomial times itself, then FOIL. You cannot distribute the square. Every time you will miss 2 of the 4 parts of FOIL. So let's look at this one. The square root of 5 plus 2 square root 7 all squared. What we're going to do is rewrite this parenthesis twice because it is squared. If it had been cubed, then we would write it 3 times, which thankfully that will not happen. All right, now I'm going to FOIL. So first, square root 5 times square root 5. Outer, square root 5 times 2 square root 7. Inner, 2 square root 7 times square root 5. And then last, 2 square root 7 times 2 square root 7. Now I'm going to go through and simplify. First, square root 5 times square root 5 is the square root of 5 times 5, or 25, which is the square root of 25, 5. Outer, square root of 5 times 2 square root 7. I'm going to do a little rearranging. So that 2 is going to come up front. And then I'm going to have the square root of 5 times the square root of 7, which is going to give me the square root of 35. The inner 2 is going to stay up front. Really, you could think of that as 2 times 1. And then the square root of 5, the square root of 7 times the square root of 5 is going to give me 7 times 5, which is the square root of 35. And then the last one, 2 times 2 is going to give me 4. Square root of 7 times square root of 7 is going to be the square root of 49, or 7. Now I'm going to go through, keep simplifying. 2 square root 35 and 2 square root 35, those are considered like terms. And so I can combine them to give me 4 square root 35, because 2 plus 2 is 4. I also can combine on these ends 5 plus 4 times 7. Well, 4 times 7 is going to give me 28. And then 28 plus 5 is going to give me 33. You can write it wherever. I'm just going to write it up front. Plus 4 square root 35. And that would be my final answer. All right, I've got one more for you from the homework. And so this one I just copied down so that we could try it out. And so here is our homework problem. Square root 2 plus square root 6 times square root 2 minus square root 6. So pause the video and give this a try. All right, so hopefully you have gone as far as you can with this problem and or finished it, or you got stuck and we're going to kind of work through it together. So you should have started with FOIL, first, outer, inner, last. So my first, square root 2 times square root 2, outer, square root 2 times negative square root 6, outer, inner, square root 6 times square root 2, and then last, square root 6 times negative square root 6. All right, now I'm going to go through and simplify on each section. So the f square root 2 times square root 2 is going to be the square root of 2 times 2, or 4. And so the square root of 4 is 2. Same thing with the next one. I've got that negative sign. Square root 2 times square root 6 is going to give me the square root of 2 times 6, or 12. And then the next one, square root of 6 times square root 2 is going to give me square root of 6 times 2, or 12. And then the last one, I've got that negative sign out front. Square root 6 times square root 6 is the square root of 36, or 6. Now I've got this middle part, and then I've got these outer terms that are my o's. And yeah, we're good. I've got these inner terms that will simplify. So let's look at the outsides. The outsides, I have got 2 and negative 6. Those I'm going to combine. 2 plus negative 6 is going to give me negative 4. And then you may simplify the square roots of 12 because they do simplify to 2 square root 3. However, in this specific case, because I've got the negative square root 12 and the positive square root 12, those are going to actually just cancel out. So you could go ahead and simplify them to 4 times 3 and then 2 times 2, and you would say 2 square root 3. So if you wanted to write this as negative 2 square root 3 and positive 2 square root 3, it wouldn't matter because negative something and a positive of the same thing, those are going to cancel. And so my final answer for that one is going to be negative 4.